Hey everyone, this is Scott from Forgot to Grow Up. Welcome to our Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 5 thought video. I just finished watching Episode 5, and this episode starts off a little slow, but ramps up by the end. A lot more than I was expecting, considering we still have one more episode to go, but wow, this episode made the Red Wedding look like a freaking Sunday tea. And that really not caught me off guard, but it was definitely a tone I wasn't 100% sure we were going to see in this one. I thought that might lead into the next episode. But yeah, I'm just going to be talking about my general thoughts about this episode. Spoiler alert for this episode if you haven't seen it yet. But yeah, some of the things that happened in this episode I thought were interesting. We see Varys finally get sentenced to death for his kind of plans and conspiring behind Daenerys. It ends up being Tyrion who turns him over. And I like the moment we get between Tyrion and Varys before he's burned to death by the dragon, and you can see that Varys doesn't hold a grudge against Tyrion for holding his ground and sticking up for the queen. And so I enjoyed that little moment, that goodbye old friend, or farewell my old friend. So I enjoyed that little moment between those two. Another thing that was kind of interesting in this one, we see Jon and Daenerys still having this, tension between them. Daenerys not believing that Jon doesn't want to be the king and doesn't want to take command because everyone loves him, and it seems like their relationship is over. That I'm still a little bit like, it seems like Jon's pulling away, and she even says, I guess it'll be, fear as opposed to love, meaning her feelings for him. So that's interesting to see that they're kind of ending off and see how it'll go from here. I'm sure that definitely played into her decisions at the end of this episode, where she, decides she's already won. She hears the bells of surrender and decides, I'm gonna burn down King's Landing anyways, and just roasts everybody, her own soldiers, innocent children, and women and children. And it was just wow. And I'm not sure, it seems like that definitely played a role into, especially considering she doesn't go straight for where Cersei was. She starts off by burning most of the city first before getting to the Red Keep. So definitely feel like that maybe played into her kind of, I don't want to say snapping, but something definitely wasn't quite right. But at the same time, if you got a dragon, maybe you're gonna burn shit. But some of the other things I enjoyed about this episode, it was a lot of stuff with Tyrion, especially at the beginning of this episode, which made me really concerned for his character. I thought he might be one of the ones we lose in this episode, because we see Tyrion with Daenerys, and we see that their relationship's still struggling, and we see also Tyrion with Jaime, him letting Jaime go because Jaime had been actually captured. And so we see those few things, and that really made me think, oh, are they setting up Tyrion to die in this one? She says, Daenerys said if he screws up one more time, and then immediately he goes and lets Jaime out. So it's like, oh, are we going to lose him soon? I hope not. He's my favorite. But yeah, speaking of Jaime, he does get free, and he goes to try and save Cersei, and he ends up running into Greyjoy, and that fight went a little differently than I thought. Jaime took a couple stabs that I wasn't prepared for, but it also kind of makes sense, especially the way his character ends up at the end of this episode, which is buried under King's Landing with Cersei, which is kind of funny that that's how she ends up dying. And she even says, it's like, this is not how I want to go. And it's like, yeah, well, that's what kind of happens. You stayed too long. You could have left earlier when the dragon destroyed all of your defenses. You could have left a little sooner. But yeah, that was still an interesting kind of path for Jaime, and his interesting kind of ending. He did at least get the ending he wanted, which was to be alongside his sister, who was his love. That incest is hard to get past. It's still weird to me. But yeah, some of the other interesting things. I like that this time that Daenerys uses the dragon properly. That thing can fly over things. So, she made sure not to get taken down by any of the scorpions, as we learn they're called in this episode. So I enjoyed that, the use of the dragon. It's like the dragon was used how a dragon was supposed to be used in this one. But yeah, we see another interesting part was just the fact that the army surrenders, and Jon's just and that's kind of the turning point for Jon, is that Cersei's forces surrender, they ring the bells, and then Daenerys and her dragon, and then Daenerys' forces as well, decide to keep killing everybody nonetheless. And that definitely seems to throw like a big shift into John, who's like, no, this is not what we came to do. We didn't come to just kill everybody. And so I enjoyed that kind of turn that we get, because it kind of helps show that, you know, there's going to be a big divide between these two going into the next episode as we lead into the end of the series. So yeah, that was interesting. What else do I have written down? Oh, we got the Arya and the Hound getting into King's Landing, and then Arya then being told by the Hound to turn around because she's just going to die because the whole place is coming down. And Arya listens for once and decides, yeah, she doesn't want to die today, and she decides to run. Almost gets killed a bunch of times by a bunch of different rocks. Thankfully, she escapes. I'm so happy she escapes. There's so many times I'm like, yeah, I'm prepared for her to just die from like stones. I thought she was gonna get like trampled to death at one point. I'm like, please don't let that be the way she dies. But it would also feel kind of fitting for Game of Thrones. But I'm glad that she, you know, rode away into the sunset, as it were. And I kind of hope that's almost in a sense where we leave her character, but not really. I do want more, but I kind of hope she gets a happy ending of some sort. But yeah, what else did I have written down? Oh yeah, and speaking of the Hound, we get the Hound versus the Mountain, and them both ended up going over the side of the castle into a big old pit of fire. So they finally got their, you know, little resolution to their conflict, and it was that was just an interesting fight to see, and this one was fun to, you know, see them finally be able to get their brotherly qualms over with. But yeah, that's just my general thoughts for this episode of Game of Thrones. I'm sure let me know in the comments below some of your favorite things about this episode, or anything you maybe didn't like about this episode. Thanks again for joining me today. Sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and have a good one.